From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. It was just before dawn, August 2015. Abduwali Ayoub sat in the passenger seat of a borrowed car, watching the road disappear behind him. He was anxious, keeping an eye on the rearview mirror. He hadn't really slept in days, and when he did, he slept with his shoes on, in case the police came to take him away in the middle of the night.
Because, if they come directly to arrest me, I should be prepared, because in the jail, it's really cold, and nobody will help you. So I slept just like that.
He'd already been arrested once for something that didn't sound like much of a crime. He had tried to open a kindergarten, just a place where children could learn in their own language, the Uyghur language. But in northwest China, even that had become dangerous. Uyghur books were banned, cultural centers shuttered, people were watched and tracked. Even a children's school could be seen as a threat. This wasn't just censorship, it was something deeper, a systematic attempt to erase a people. Abduwali had been caught in that wave, arrested, beaten, silenced. When he was finally released more than a year later, he understood. Prison wasn't the end of his punishment, it was a warning. So he decided to make a break for it.
I just feel like somebody is following us. I was just keep looking at the mirror.
The man behind the wheel tried to reassure him.
Nothing will happen. Yeah. No one following us. And I have friends in the police, and they will help you.
That man was Ekpar Asat. In another country, he might have been called a tech visionary or a civic innovator. He was the founder of Bagdash, a kind of Uyghur Facebook, a digital town square for sharing art and music and memories.
Yeah, it was voice for Uyghurs at that time. Like a chance for the Uyghur to express their feeling. Because the traditional media restricted any contents related to Uyghur history, Uyghur culture, but the internet is little bit flex.
Online, the rules about what Uyghurs could or couldn't say seemed fuzzier. Write something controversial in state media, you could get arrested. But online?
The consequences is just delete the post. Just delete the post.
Ekpar knew how to navigate all that, and he mentored others like Abduwali so they could do the same.
He said that, if we keep that red line, police are understandable. We can work with them. He told me, we can work with the police.
The morning of that anxious ride, Ekpar had arranged everything. The ride, the flight, the cover story.
I insisted not to do that. But he insisted. He said that, I want to see you leave safely. Let me do it. He was the only person I have seen the last day I left China. His face still, so innocent.
Finally safe in his seat on the plane, Abduwali sent Ekpar one last message.
I am on the plane. Please take care of yourself. That was my last message. After that, I deleted him from my phone.
It was the last time he ever saw Ekpar. From Recorded Future News and PRX, I'm Dina Temple-Reston, and this is Click Here, a podcast about all things cyber and intelligence. We tell true stories about the people making and breaking our digital world. And today, part 3 of our series on modern authoritarianism. Last week, we told you how the Chinese government had turned Xinjiang province into a laboratory for surveillance, tracking phones, scanning faces, mapping entire social circles. This week, the story of Ekpar Asat, a Uyghur tech visionary who created online what Beijing was trying to erase in real life, a space for his people to connect, to share, and preserve their culture. The government's answer was to take that space and turn it into a weapon. And the tactics they perfected on Ekpar and the Uyghur community are no longer just confined to Xinjiang. They're being sold, adopted, and deployed far beyond China's borders. It's a story about technology, yes, but it's also about a sister, fighting for the brother who inspired her, and for the freedoms that surveillance threatens everywhere. Stay with us.
Elon Musk, Doge, and Donald Trump are weaving a web of technological corruption.
Suddenly, the eyes of the industry are open to things that had been obvious to lots of other people for months. Isn't it a conflict of interest that the president of the United States, who regulates crypto, has his own coin?
I'm Lizzie O'Leary, the host of What Next TBD, Slate's podcast about tech, power, and the future. What Next TBD covers the latest on how Silicon Valley is changing our government and our lives. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
From Recorded Future News, this is Click Here. I'm Dina Temple-Raston. Before Bagdash, before the website, before any of that, Rayhan Asat, Ekbar's older sister, remembers apples.
Maybe we were like 5, 6 years old. Like my mom would give me 2 apples, and one is intentionally bigger than the other. And then she asked me to choose. Which one would you want to give it to your brother? And I would choose the small one for myself and would give the bigger one to my brother.
It wasn't just a lesson in generosity. It was something deeper, a way to teach them where their loyalty should lie.
And whenever I have a problem, I will come to my parents. And the first thing my mom would say, have you consulted with your brother?
Wow.
I later asked my mom, like, why did you do that? And, she had this idea that, parents, obviously, like, they're not going to be with us for a long time. But if she can cultivate this incredibly strong friendship between the two of us, then we could be each other's best friend in this life.
And they were. Like when Rayhan didn't have a date for a wedding or a school party, Ekbar stepped in.
He would be my stand-in date for whatever fun night that we could think of. If I'm having a relationship problems, like he would be somebody that I would be turning to for advice.
And when she thinks back on those years, there's one image that always comes to mind. Ekbar, barely a teen, sitting in front of a massive, boxy computer monitor, the kind that looks like it belongs in a science museum now.
The computer overpowered him, so he's like a tiny teenager sitting in front of this chunky computer, this like a red tie that is like, when you
that
go to
was
school,
Ekbar,
like everybody has to wear
curious,
this.
quiet, focused, and already in love with machines that made sense to him, even when the rest of the world didn't. Rayhan remembers bringing him to a friend's apartment. Her friend had a computer problem no one seemed to be able to fix. She'd taken it to tech shops, asking around, nothing. So Rayhan thought maybe her little brother could take a look.
And she thought that, I'm going to make this nice tea and like, make small snacks for us so that we get to catch up while he's fixing. But he fixed it in like 10 minutes, like so quickly. It's something that's so broken. And she was like, this is unbelievable. He was the kind of guy who's interested in understanding how to fix things, right?
And over time, the things he wanted to fix got bigger. They had no way of knowing it then, but those afternoons spent huddled around the glitchy computers, those quiet conversations over tea, they were rehearsals for something bigger. Because as Ekbar grew older and the world around him shifted, he began to notice something was off. Not just in the machines he'd love to fix, but in the larger system around him, the one that crushed the people who tried to question it. Ekpar had grown up in Urumqi, a city in China's far northwest, populated mostly by the country's Muslim minority. It's a place where the signs were in his language and the faces looked like his, and where being Uyghur wasn't something you had to explain. But when he went online, it was a different story. The Uyghur language is hard to find, so was Uyghur music or art or news. The digital world was in Mandarin, and the space for Uyghurs to express themselves barely existed. So he did what he always did. He started trying to fix that. It started in college, a simple website, a side project. He called it Bagdash.
So when he started, Bagdash.com was sort of like a college passion project. And it started to grow.
The name itself was a kind of message. Bagdash is a type of tree.
Bagdash is known as this kind of like a tree is known for its endurance of all sorts of seasons in life, right? Just like embodiment of different historical periods in which people's resilience really comes through.
And that's what this was, a project about endurance, about building something strong enough to survive. Bagdash wasn't designed to go viral. It was designed to hold memory, to give people a place to see their culture reflected back at them. It started essentially as a blog and then grew from there.
You write about different things, but there's another section he would publish like Uyghur music so that people get to know the rich culture in Uyghur music. So he started off just doing something as simple as that, but he realized that what if we connect people?
It was a kind of home, one that lived online just outside Beijing's grasp.
Bagdash welcomes you. We hope you enjoy your time on Bagdash.
And it caught on. Ekpar knew that if he wanted Bagdash to survive, he had to grow it into something sustainable. But his parents didn't quite see it that way.
In China, like, parents would think that, especially if you're from a Uyghur family, what is the most conservative but also solid job that you don't get into trouble?
To them, a government job was safe, predictable. Bagdash wasn't. But Rayhan knew what her brother was building, and more importantly, who he was becoming.
He's a leader in his own right. He already has very loyal followers, people who want to contribute to the vision that he has.
So she sat down with her parents and made the case. Let him do this, she told them, or risk watching him walk away from the one thing that gave him purpose.
You need to let him pursue his passion. Otherwise, he won't be committed to what he's doing.
Eventually, they agreed, but there was a catch.
And my parents finally came around under one condition, which is there's no financial support for him to do what he wants to do.
No money, no safety net, just permission. So at 22, Ekpar set out on his own. No investors, no incubator, just an idea and a mattress on the floor. He rented a small apartment, barely more than 4 concrete walls.
Completely unfurnished, to the point that the walls are still like a cement, it's not even painted walls.
He cooked in a makeshift kitchen, slept beside his modem, and coded Bagdash at all hours. A dreamer, yes, but practical enough to know that if Bagdash was going to survive, it needed funding. Not venture capital, he wasn't chasing money, he was building something for his community. So he turned to that community. He went to Uyghur businesses, restaurants, tailors, bookstores, people building something of their own.
He would reach out to this small, medium-sized company and say, you obviously doing a wonderful job, but your product is not known until it's seen on the internet.
It was grassroots, one pitch at a time. He'd cold call business owners, walk into storefronts, demo the site right there on his phone. He even left blank space on the homepage, rows of empty rectangles that simply read, "Your ad could go here." It was a kind of silent invitation, a bet. If I build it, maybe you'll come. And slowly, they did. Restaurants bought banners, schools ran promos. Bagdash started earning enough to cover hosting fees, a faster connection, better equipment. It wasn't flashy, but it was working. Soon, Bagdash outgrew that cold cinder block apartment, and Ekpar moved into proper office space. He hired nearly a dozen people. He even signed up interns.
There's a lot of years of grinding, just growing the platform to what it became known in the Uyghur homeland, the leading platform in terms of social media.
A social network built from scratch for a people quietly being erased. An achievement in any context, but especially in this one. Because building something like Bagdash in a place like Xinjiang wasn't just ambitious, it was dangerous. Every new feature, every post, every piece of code had to walk a line. Say too much and the government might shut you down. Say too little and your own community might wonder whether you'd already given in. The first test came from a city called Guja. A teacher there had filed a complaint. She said she had been sexually harassed by the principal of her school. She took the case to court, and she lost, and then lost her job. So she turned to the only place that might still listen, the platform Ekpar had built. She logged onto Bagdash and told her story. The post spread. People saw it, and instead of staying silent, they spoke up too.
People were saying, like, they were actually commending her for her courage to speak up, her vulnerability, and also, like, just speaking truth to power.
More and more people joined in, not just with likes or emojis, but with real words, real names, a kind of digital rallying cry in a place where even quiet dissent is seen as defiance. And Rayhan felt it, the way a single post could shift everything. She was studying in Canada by then, keeping an eye on Ekpar from afar. She watched the comments stacking up, the silence from authorities stretching on just a little too long. And she started to worry.
I got really scared. I called him and I said, "Are you okay?"
Because she knew her brother. She knew how much he believed in giving people a voice. But she also knew what it might cost him. But when she reached out, he wasn't panicked. He was thinking about her, actually.
And he said, like, if this, God forbid, if this happened to you, I want you to be able to share this and get the kind of support that, you need. And this is what she did. So I'm going to support her no matter what.
So he left the post up, and then he just waited. Then something unexpected. The principal was fired, and the teacher got her job back.
It also sparked a conversation around these kind of sensitive issues. And, the government officials even ended up visiting my brother and kind of commended him for doing the right thing.
They applauded him for not letting it become something more incendiary, for walking that fine line.
To navigate the system in a way that keeps helping people while at the same time protecting himself.
It looked like Ekpar had found a way to make it work. He hadn't just built a platform, he'd built trust with his users, with his community, and even, it seemed, with the state. But in Xinjiang, balance is fleeting, and silence doesn't always mean safety. That's when we come back. Stay with us.
In cybersecurity, your greatest fear isn't the threats you see, it's the critical signals lost in the noise. Every day, security teams sort through millions of potential threats. That's why Recorded Future exists, to give you precision intelligence tuned to your needs. Our advanced AI detects patterns humans might miss, while our threat intelligence experts, veterans of military and intelligence services, provide crucial context. With Recorded Future, you gain the confidence to identify critical threats and the precision to act before they become attacks. Learn why 1,900-plus customers, including 45-plus sovereign governments, trust us to detect threats faster and achieve 350% plus ROI within a year.
The trouble began, as it so often does, with a news report. Word got around that 2 Uyghur men, thousands of miles from home, had been killed at a toy factory in southern China. And on July 5th, 2009, that rumor reached Urumqi. Thousands of Uyghurs took to the streets. They wanted answers. They wanted justice. And in the beginning, the marches were peaceful. But then something cracked. Stones were thrown. Police responded with a brutal crackdown. And by nightfall, Urumqi was no longer a city. It was a scream. Official reports would later say nearly 200 people were killed. Half were Han Chinese, and the other half were Uyghur. Beijing called it ethnic violence, Uyghur against Han Chinese. And then came this silence. The government shut everything down. The internet, the phone lines, the digital heartbeat of the region. And with it, Bagdash disappeared too. Not because it had caused the protests, it didn't, but because social media had carried the spark.
How that uprising happened in the first place was also through sort of a social media mobilization. People got to learn that there is a protest taking place in Urumqi. And
for a brief moment, Bagdash had been a bridge, a town square, a respite. One that the Chinese government tolerated until it didn't. The crackdown began with police pouring into Uyghur neighborhoods and rounding up more than 1,400 men. Checkpoints appeared like weeds, facial recognition cameras perched like hawks from every lamppost, and they sharpened the algorithms, clocking things that used to be just life as a Uyghur: beards, headscarves, overseas calls, deleted apps, foreign travel. Now all of that was considered evidence. And in the middle of this tightening came an unexpected reprieve, an invitation. In 2016, the U.S. State Department offered Ekpar a spot in a leadership program. 3 weeks in America to study civil society, journalism, the open internet. It seemed impossible that Beijing would allow him to go, but somehow they did.
My brother had to navigate the incredibly difficult world of getting a passport as a Uyghur person. You have to get a stamp from 18 different government organizations, and you have to pledge that your religion is only the Communist Party, all these sort of
and
things.
And then, like something out of a dream, he was on a plane landing in America. He squeezed into a Formula One race car in Florida. He cheered at an NBA game in Indiana.
Here comes Indiana, racing and
he took a selfie under the CNN logo in Atlanta, grinning like a kid.
This is CNN.
Rayhan was finishing her final year at Harvard Law School by then. She was knee-deep in finals, but she dropped everything and caught a late bus to New York just to see him.
And by the time I got to his hotel, it was really, really late. And so we got something from a deli. I bought some ice cream, just
They sat on the bed, talked and laughed, passing the spoon back and forth like kids. She was happy to see him, excited to catch up. But she was also there on a mission. She had been watching the crackdown from afar, and she wanted to warn him about the red lines that were moving from beneath his feet, about the storm she saw coming.
I told him, because I'm in overseas, the kind of information that I have access to is very different than the kind of information he would have access to.
He waved it off.
He talked about how economically China is very prosperous, so there are a lot of opportunities for individuals like him, Uyghur entrepreneurs, Uyghur CEOs.
Where she saw a noose tightening, he saw a path forward. Where she saw risk, he saw possibility. She wasn't sure he appreciated just how dangerous things had become. Don't let your guard down while you're here, she said. They have spies everywhere. And he nodded and said he would. They'd waited so long to see each other, and now they were finally in the same room, talking. It felt so easy, so familiar. Rayhan didn't want the night to end.
And I told him, I want to stay. I'm like, I don't want to leave, but what should I do? And he's like, no, go. School is very important.
Besides, he said, we'll see each other again in just a couple of months. He'd bring their parents. They'd all watch her walk across the Harvard Law stage together.
So we're gonna visit California. We'll go on this road trip. He'll be driving, and we had this a very, very just a vision for the next few months, right? It's a beautiful vision, us as a family together.
Early the next morning, he walked her to the bus station. And then, just before they said goodbye, he pulled something from his bag, a copy of his State Department itinerary.
And he had an extra copy. And he's like, why don't you keep this as a souvenir?
It was a list of his stops across the country and the officials he'd met, with phone numbers and emails and names. She tucked it into her bag without thinking, waved goodbye, and boarded a bus back to Boston. 3 weeks later, after he returned to China, Ekpar vanished. His phone calls went unanswered, his messages stopped. It was like he'd been erased.
And it took me a bit of time to realize what happened to him. My parents were too scared to even tell me.
Eventually, word came. He'd been arrested. There was no evidence, no trial, no real explanation. He was just gone. When we reached out to the Chinese embassy about his case, they said they'd never even heard of Ekpar. But our sources told us the government did charge him, and that charge was inciting ethnic hatred. Rayhan felt helpless. She was thousands of miles away, a lowly law student with no title or influence, with no idea what to do next, until she remembered that souvenir, the State Department itinerary Ekpar had handed her when he was in the States.
Maybe God was trying to tell me something, I just didn't listen.
Whether souvenir or sign, it was strategic. It gave her a place to start.
That brochure has everything.
It was like he left you a map.
Exactly.
Because inside were the names and numbers of people at the State Department, NGO staffers, organizers. So Rayhan began desperately cold calling every name on the list.
I met with the State Department officials, told them what happened. I asked them, I said, can you privately advocate for him?
They told her in situations like this, it's often better not to be too loud. That can harden the captor's position. Their recommendation? To just wait it out.
They might release him in the next few months or a year, you don't know what's going on. They might just make sure that he, just a few months of discussion, they would let him go, right?
So she waited, dreading what might come. She knew how the system worked in China, how arbitrary it could be. And on the long list of reasons the Chinese government targets people, Ekpar had checked one of the boxes: foreign travel.
There are 48 ways that people can be sent into the camps or in prison or targeted. And people who have traveled abroad, they said you're being infiltrated with certain ideology.
As if you could catch freedom the way you catch a cold. Scraps of information trickled in now and then, rumors and shadows, but nothing changed. Months stretched into a year, then 2, then 4. The silence itself became a kind of torture.
My biggest worry has been he thinks that I forgot about him or the world has forgotten about him. I just wish he knows that I haven't forgotten about him.
After years of carrying that guilt and fear, she couldn't keep it in any longer. Rayhan made a decision. 4 years after he was arrested, she decided it was time to tell the world what had happened to Ekpar.
So I started contacting the media outlets, and media was hugely interested in this story, especially with the connection with the State Department and what happened to him.
She told the New York Times everything. All about Ekpar, the visit to America, the charges, the silencing of the Uyghur internet, and they ran a major story. It was a turning point. For the first time in years, people were saying Ekpar's name out loud, and others began to listen. There were op-eds, diplomatic inquiries, meetings at the UN, 2 visits to the Trump White House.
I hope as the US and China continue to engage and find some sort of common ground, he would become part of some sort of exchange deal and they would secure his release.
And there was reason to hope. Just this spring, the Trump administration freed 15 political prisoners in Belarus, and it proved that deals like that could happen. A few months ago, something unexpected happened. Her parents were granted a visit with Ekpar. It had been more than a year since they'd seen their son, more than a year since anyone had, and the visit took place at Aksu Prison, one of the most notorious facilities in Xinjiang, not just because of its isolation, but because of what happens inside. There are allegations of torture, political indoctrination, forced confessions. It took them 12 hours by train.
Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you aboard the high-speed rail EMU trains.
Then came the layers of security, 3 checkpoints in all, and finally, just a few minutes, face to face. They smiled, told him they were fine, and he smiled back and said he was fine too. But they could see it, even for someone as relentlessly optimistic as their son, the prison was wearing on him.
I think that was really painful for my parents. What did he do to deserve this level of cruelty?
Partway through their short conversation, he asked about Rayhan.
He said to my parents that I know my sister, she put her life on hold for me, and I don't want her to do that.
It's advice her friends had given her too, that she has to move on and reclaim her life.
And my friends told me that if I don't, then I'm allowing the Chinese government to imprison both of us. But it's incredibly hard because you know what they're going through, so much worse than we can ever imagine. And it's so much easier said than done.
Psychologists have a term for what Rayhan is living through, when someone is still alive but unreachable. They call it ambiguous loss.
You're navigating this whole world while there is another person in prison. It's not like somebody died and you can just move on ultimately, except this is part of the life. When somebody's in prison, it's ongoing struggle, ongoing pain. It just never stops. The horror never stops. I guess the best thing that can capture my feeling and what I'm doing is that perhaps it would have been less painful for me to fight for him and do the kind of things that I'm doing. Maybe there are a lot of siblings are not this close. I remember one time I told my mom, I said, why did you raise us in a way that we love each other so much?
Her mother paused and then answered, "What is the meaning of life then? Love," she said, "is everything we live for." Now, this isn't just Ekpar's story. It isn't just Rayhan's. It's the story of more than 1 million other Uyghurs who have been detained, surveilled, and silenced since 2016. If it feels far away, look again, because authoritarianism never starts with camps. It tiptoes in, starts with something smaller, easy to dismiss. A book that's quietly removed from a syllabus, a website that gets taken down, or a diversity policy that's suddenly under review. The pattern doesn't shout, it whispers. At first, it's framed as protection, a matter of national security, just a little less access, just a little more surveillance. Then someone is called unpatriotic, then accused of being a threat, until finally, one day, the voices are gone. Not with a bang, but with a quiet click. And by the time you realize the line has been crossed, The line has vanished. This is Click Here.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.
Here are some of the top cyber and intelligence stories from the past week. It's Tuesday, August 19th. Last month, President Trump signed the Bipartisan Genius Act.
And with today's signing, we're pushing even further into the exciting new frontier.
For the first time, it laid out federal rules for stablecoins, a kind of cryptocurrency pegged to the dollar. And suddenly, banks that had once sworn off crypto are lining up to mint their own coins. The promise? Faster transactions and lower fees. The catch? No more interest on your stablecoin savings and no federal insurance if things go south. But some bankers are calling it a throwback to the wildcat banking era of the 1800s, when states issued competing currencies which spiraled into chaos until the government finally stepped in. And now we wait to see if history rhymes. Just days before President Trump was scheduled to sit down with Russian President Vladimir Putin, U.S. officials warned of a breach that may be one of the most sensitive yet.
U.S. officials believe Russian hackers were behind a massive breach of the federal court filing system.
The system manages federal court documents, including highly sensitive records that contain everything from the identities of confidential informants to details about national security investigations. Officials haven't said which branch of the Russian government played a hand in the hack, but they did say that forensics showed that the hackers were looking for criminal cases involving people with Russian and Eastern European surnames. For years, U.S. officials say, Russian operatives have been trying to get federal court files from a roster of jurisdictions. Last month, chief judges in district courts across the country were quietly told to remove sensitive documents from the online system. Trump seemed to shrug it off.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised? They hack in. That's what they do. They're good at it. We're good at it.
Chief Justice Roberts voiced his own concern about hackers cracking into the federal court system in 2022 in his year-end report. What's unclear is whether the hack came up in Trump's meeting with Putin last week. DEF CON 2025 is now done and dusted. And on the Hacking Village floor was a discussion about something that came up last year, the vulnerability of water utilities.
But recently, as I'm sure people in this room know, other parts of critical infrastructure that are just as deeply important to us are now being hacked at levels we never saw before, like water utilities and K-12 school districts.
Last year, a man named Jake Braun came to the conference with a simple request: help us secure the country's water utilities. And 350 white hat hackers volunteered. And Jake, who was President Biden's deputy national cyber director, says he could have had 1,000 more. Out of that came something called DEF CON Franklin.
We named it Franklin after, as you can tell by the sign, Benjamin Franklin, because he started the first volunteer fire department in the United States in Philly in the 1700s.
4 states ran a pilot, with white hat hackers teaming up with local utilities to run vulnerability assessments. The group was like a volunteer fire brigade, but for cyber. What the experiment made clear is that when Chinese and Iranian hackers target small utilities, and there were about 50,000 of them in the U.S., they neither have the budget nor the staff to fight back. Next up, DEF CON Franklin plans to release a hacker's almanac. It'll be a field guide for people trying to defend the weakest links in America's digital plumbing. And finally,
Hi YouTube, how are you doing? And welcome to Dead Take. This game completely surprised me. I personally had not...
When House of Dragon star Abu Bakr Salim got fed up with Hollywood's dark side, he didn't write a memoir, he made a video game. It's called Dead Take. 1 part horror, 1 part psychological thriller. It's a complete takedown of Hollywood's toxic power. The main character is Chase, who is, you guessed it, a struggling actor.
Hi, my name is Chase Lowry, 6'3", Los Angeles. Just want to say I'm really excited to get to audition for the part of Willie in your upcoming project.
Then Chase's friend goes missing, and players search a director's mansion for clues, solving puzzles, unlocking rooms littered with secrets about abuse and manipulation. The project uses real footage of voice actors, and Salim calls it an exorcism of the Hollywood machine.
Today's episode was written and produced by Dina Temple-Raston, Megan Dietrich, Erica Gaida, Zach Hirsch, and the lead producer was me, Sean Powers. It was edited by Karen Duffin, fact-checked by Darren Ankrum, and contains original music from Amir Kalich, Hairu Nisa Yinomes, and Ben Livingston. We had other music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, and our illustrator is Megan Goff. Our sound designer and mixer for this episode was Jake Cook. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Tune in on Friday for Mic Drop, where we talk to a man who is trying to save the Uyghur internet, one website at a time.
Uyghur websites are a treasure trove of knowledge. They depict the homes and dreams of Uyghurs. And that's exactly what the Chinese authorities are trying to destroy.
That's next time on Click Here. We'll see you then.
If you're looking for a daily guide to cybersecurity news and policy, sign up for the Cyber Daily from Recorded Future News. It serves up the day's most interesting and important cyber stories from our sister publication, The Record, and then aggregates all of the big cyber stories you might have missed from news outlets around the world. Just go to therecord.media and click on Cyber Daily to get all you need to know about the world of cybersecurity right in your inbox.